Welcome to Mirza Movers, a series where we celebrate leaders, trailblazers, and change makers in the caregiving industry. By sharing their stories, we hope to shed light on the importance of caregiving and the type of work that's being done to build a better world of care. I'm Saran, I'm the CEO and co-founder of Mirza, and today we're over the moon to be joined by Reshma Saujani. Reshma, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you, Saran, for having me. It's so great to be here.
Reshma, will you share a bit more about yourself with the audience and tell us about all of your incredible work in the care space?
So, a little bit about me. I'm the daughter of refugees. My parents came to this country in 1973. I always wanted to make a difference. I thought I would do that by going into the law. So, graduated from law school with $300,000 in student loan debt. I knew from the time I was little that I wanted to make a difference, especially in the lives of women and girls. So, I ran for office. I was the first South Asian woman to ever run for United States Congress. I lost miserably. That experience, though, inspired me to start Girls Who Code, which is what I've spent the past 10 years of my life, or 13 years of my life building. And then the pandemic happened. I had this massive shift because I saw how so many of my students who were on their way to major in computer science couldn't do that because we lived in a country that has a broken structure of care. And so I stepped off of being CEO of Girls Who Code to start Moms First, to really fight for three things: paid leave, childcare, and equal pay for moms.
It is so incredible to hear what you've built and the many different incredible organizations you've built. So now in Moms First, will you share a bit more what you envision for the future of care and the impact it can have?
We have the most educated population of women with the least amount of labor market participation. And we often think about, well, that's because women just need to get a mentor or a sponsor or get a little more confidence or color code their calendar, right? We've constantly focused on solving the problem of gender inequality by trying to fix women. And by doing that, we have not focused on the broken structure of care. And what I mean by that is that the United States is the only industrialized nation that doesn't have paid leave. 1 in 4 women go back to work 2 weeks after having a baby. The United States is the wealthiest nation that invests the least amount in childcare. 40% of parents are in debt because of the cost of childcare. Most women work to work. And, we have a pay gap because we pay mothers less the minute they become moms, and we pay fathers more for exactly the same amount of work. And so, but we have never, really focused on solving that broken structure as a means and a ways to close the gender gap in the United States. And so, what I want to do at Moms First is refocus our attention on those issues, not just from a policy perspective and passing bills, but from a movement perspective. And I think the pandemic was a big eye opener for so many moms because we thought as mothers, the reason why we're struggling and balancing these two kind of responsibilities we have, one is primary caretakers. 2/3 of the caregiving work is done by women, in this country. And as now many times primary breadwinners, or at least, we live in families in which you need both incomes to basically put food on the table and pay for their mortgage. And those two identities, and having to perform those identities without any support, and in fact having structures that are set up to incentivize us to fail, we for so long thought that that's my fault. It's my personal problem that I have to solve. And now we're finally, I think, engaged, and I think through the work that we've done at Moms First and so many other amazing organizations, in really pushing that conversation to the center and saying, let's fix the structure. Let's pass affordable childcare. Let's make sure that we have, paid leave. Let's, do something about the pay gap or the motherhood penalty. I think now that we're focused on that and focused on solving those problems for the first time, I think in our country in a real unified way, I think we have a shot, at fixing the broken structure of care.
Yeah. I love what you said about many times and so much historically, we've tried to fix women, and we see that in the willingness to pay for a professional coach for an executive woman, but not actually fix the structures that makes it so hard for that woman and the many women who want to be there. And what's really powerful about Moms First is building the coalition across employers, governments, innovators, and more. So would you share some initiatives or projects that you're currently working on to
Yeah.
improve this?
I love that. I mean, I think what you're saying, like, and the fact, like, we're building we have over a million moms that are part of our community, and we've built this in partnership with, like you said, with companies like Mirza, basically inviting innovators who are looking at the famtech space and saying, how do we disrupt it? How do we change it? Even if you think about childcare as a business model, it's broken. And so, how do you shift that? How do you change that? How do we reimagine what childcare looks like? And how can entrepreneurs, think about like re-scoping that? How can entrepreneurs think about, doing something about the gender inequality in who does work at home? The fact that 2/3 of the unpaid labor is still, quite frankly, being done by women. Are there technical solutions that you can have in really shifting that ratio? And so I think really inviting innovators and people that are in the famtech space who are thinking about these problems in new and different ways, I think is really critical. We've also been engaging in business and building a business coalition on care. So, we have the National Business Coalition on Childcare. We have over 120 businesses, that are part of this. Just last week, we released a report with BCG that proves the ROI on childcare. Between 6 to 12% of companies are offering some sort of childcare subsidies. And what's interesting is they've been offering them because maybe the CEO thinks it's the right thing to do. Maybe there's a mom, that's running HR that says we have to do something about this. But the assumption is still that, I know I want to do something about childcare, but it's just too expensive. And so we realized that while we're waiting for Congress to do something about childcare, we have to engage business. We have to engage business in providing this as a benefit for their employees. But in order to do that, we have to overcome the hurdle or the assumption that it's just too expensive and we can't afford it. And so we did a report with BCG that, took about 5 companies from various industries and various different solutions they were providing, whether it was in-person daycare to just providing a subsidy or providing backup care. And we showed that the return on investment in providing this benefit was anywhere between kind of 90% to 425%. And it showed that if 1% of eligible employees took advantage of the benefit, it pays for itself in terms of increased worker productivity, in terms of retention. So like we settled it once and for all, right? That childcare pays for itself when you invest in it.
It is such a powerful number because that is fundamentally a large part of what innovators like us who are in the childcare space run up against. Um, Having that data is crucial. And then now you're expanding the scope for Moms First and setting your sights on paid leave as well. Would you share more about the work there?
Yeah, I mean, we paid leave has always been kind of a part of our, part of what we think we need to do to fix the structure, right? Because again, if the vast majority of women are going back to work before they're ready, both physically and mentally, you're going to leave or you're going to downshift in your careers. But when you go back when you're ready, you are more productive, you are as committed. And so making paid leave available to all parents is a critical goal. And so one of the ways most recently that we approach solving this problem is by a tool that we built called paidleave.ai in partnership with OpenAI, and really saying, okay, so many, right now about 10 states offer paid leave. The federal government does not offer, federal paid leave, but 10 states offer it. But the problem is the uptake rates are really low. And when uptake rates are low and people aren't taking advantage of the benefit, when Congress looks at like, should we pass paid leave? Well, look at these states that are already offering it. Nobody's really taking advantage of it. Do we really need to put it number 1, 2, or 3 on our list? And it's one of the reasons why we don't have federal paid leave is because the uptake rates in the states are very low. And so we really thought that generative AI could be one of the ways that we actually change that. And the uptake rates are low in many states because when you go to the government website, you can't really figure out whether you're eligible, how much money you're eligible for, and how do you go and get it. And so people, especially low-income women who don't have a lot of time, they just give up. And that's $10,000 in wages they give up on that could, quite frankly, put food on the table, help pay for the kids' childcare, etc. And so we built a tool called paidleave.ai to help use generative AI to help solve that problem, to make it easier for parents to determine whether they're eligible for benefits, how much money they're eligible for, and how they can actually go get those benefits. We had over 25,000 parents went on the website to basically figure out whether they were eligible. So it was like a huge, 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 I think, innovation in this space towards getting paid leave passed.
Yeah, 100%. I think that is what I found so interesting about it was on 2 fronts. The first being, There are such nice parallels to what we're doing with Mirza. And actually, are you eligible for government childcare subsidy? How do you capture those dollars? Because less than 20% of families actually receive them. And that goes towards, and we now really need to expand that pot because people now know, and they're applying and they need it. But on the other end, purely for the value of paid leave and making sure that parents, not just moms, take it, that's also another one of those avenues to tap into the women doing 2/3 of that unpaid labor. Because
Yeah.
there's research that when dad takes that paid leave and it's staggered with mom, dad learns the skills.
Yep. Exactly. I mean, we really got to move towards gender neutral paid leave and mandating or incentivizing people to take it. I know I always say like, what do you do with the dads? I'm like, no, the dads are with us. Like they want to be with their kids too, especially in the pandemic. They got to take Johnny to baseball or drop him off at school or like take an active role in his caregiving. But we still kind of live in a culture which doesn't allow dads to really do that. We still gaslight men, quite frankly, when they take leave. And we know that leave when you first have a child is really critical to figuring out the balance in families. In corporate America, it's like one of the things that we're really trying to get people to shift is increasing availability of these benefits, whether it's paid leave or whether it's childcare, right? And part of that means that men in senior management need to say, this is what we got to invest in. This makes business sense, right? Not that this is the right thing to do, because the problem is when you approach these benefits as this is the right thing to do, in moments of kind of posterity, it's the first thing to get cut. First thing to say, well, let's shut down the daycare center. Let's, not offer those benefits anymore. Let's reduce, paid leave benefits from 12 weeks to 8 weeks, right? Because it's seen as like a gym membership perk. It's not a gym membership perk. One of the things I think we've learned from our study that we did with BCG is that it's quite frankly financial negligence by not providing these benefits because of the incentive that you get or the savings that you have from retaining your employees. It's very costly to replace employees every 8 months or every 12 months. But if you know that you're actually going to retain them for extra 12 months or an extra 18 months when you provide these benefits, then you better provide these benefits, right? And so it's like, really, again, changing the entire way that we both talk about these benefits and we see these benefits is really critical. And I think that both what's happening, what we need to, the movement that we need to see happen both in corporate America and in Congress is pretty much the same, which is changing the hearts and minds of male decision makers who are the ones deciding these things, and getting them to recognize both the financial benefits of it and that, quite frankly, it's not just a women's issue, it's a family issue.
There's some very fascinating parallels to seeing the corporate world really get behind the LGBTQ rights movement
Yeah.
and that shifting then in the wider culture, shifting into legislation. In your opinion, we've talked about several misconceptions or stereotypes. What are the biggest misconceptions or stereotypes that you'd like to dispel about care?
It's like a personal problem and
Mhm.
not an economic issue and not a social good. And I think that is really important. Like to me, I see care as just as important as AI. We think that it's important, AI investment is really important because it's going to revolutionize and change our economy, change our labor force, change everything about the way that we live and work. It's the same thing with care. We're not utilizing our most innovative workers because 50% of Americans can't find or afford childcare. So it's not a personal thing that I have to go solve or fix. It's an economic issue. Once people start really recognizing and understanding how fundamental that is, the parallel that I always draw is through K through 12 education. The United States was one of the first countries to make K through 12 education free. And when we did it, people said, "You're nuts. Why would you spend all that money on that?" But because we made that decision, we created the most innovative workforce in the world, which allowed us as a country to kind of dominate in science, technology, AI, etc., all these different spaces because we invested in our children. It's the same thing that, in fact, you could fill stadiums of evidence about investment in early childcare, in early education. It's the same argument for having universal childcare, making it free and available for everybody, because that is what is going to lead us to innovation for our workforce. It's just a real narrative shift. Part of the reason why I always think about this, like, why are we so different? Why are we the only industrialized nation that doesn't have paid leave, or that's the wealthiest nation that spends the least amount in childcare. I think we just haven't reconciled our desire to want to keep women at home. We
Yeah.
still think that the best caregivers are mothers. But the reality is that we don't live in the 1950s anymore. The vast majority of families can't afford to not have two people working. Many more families are run by single mothers who need to work, right? So it's like the American family has changed, but our cultural norms have not caught up to the reality. So we keep making people suffer. We have had this normative good of what we think a family should look like and who should be taking care of children that doesn't sit with reality.
And it's very much this 1950s ideal that historically also wasn't always the case. We
Right.
children growing up in multi-generational families raised in the community. It's not this nuclear family unit that's been since the beginning of human evolution.
Yeah. And part of it is just giving women choice. I also think, listen, on our feminists, I think push too hard for also just labor market participation as a form of success. And so we never actually fought for the things that we needed to fight for, quite frankly. Like, why is the school day 8 to 3 and the workday 9 to 5? We have these mommy wars, right, between stay-at-home moms and moms who work in the workplace. And all of that didn't help either because it didn't allow us to really build the fullness of the movement. And to me, it's about freedom, the ability to move in and out of the workforce without penalty. You want to stay home for 8 years? Great. And then you want to be able to return back to the workforce because you have a PhD or you have a master's or a bachelor's degree and you haven't lost half your brain. You should be able to. And for so long, quite frankly, companies have had algorithms that spit out people's resumes when there's a gap. We just have to rethink the whole thing from start to finish.
To pivot our topic a bit, would you share a bit about your success stories now? So, from the work that you've done in the care space, just to
Yeah.
motivate people to know this is a fight worth fighting and you're making progress.
Well, one, I would argue the fact that we have well over 1 million active moms that are part of our movement in less than, 2 years of building this organization just shows the power of mothers who want to have a voice and who want to do something towards changing that. So our grassroots movement is just fire. It's and we've taken so many actions, whether, writing to Congress to make sure we don't go over the childcare cliff, to helping form a bipartisan childcare caucus, to basically, pushing for paid leave to get passed in New Mexico. We've engaged in action, what I mean? And we've shown that like our members are interested in engaging in action. So when that moment comes for millions of us to march or to show up, what I mean? We're ready, we're ready for that. Second thing, I think in launching paidleave.ai was a huge innovation. It was the first kind of generative AI tool on care, one of the first generative AI tools solving a public sector problem. And the fact that it was on paid leave is powerful. You know what I mean? And, we've had some amazing statistics to show that when we launched the tool, how searches for paid leave went up astronomically, right? The fact that Sam Altman's a partner on this, and he is seen as one of the most kind of prolific, I think, business leaders right now in the country, and engaging on this topic and this issue of care, I think is kind of enormously powerful. The fact that the third thing I'll say is that we launched the first ever study on the ROI on care, and then we have real numbers kind of backing this up for the first time is really, really critical, I think, for the shift in the conversation. I spoke at Davos on care for the first time of having somebody on the main stage talk about care. So this change is really coming. And I do believe that like having paid leave in childcare is passing it in our country is on our horizon. I see it, it's coming. It's just that we have to get louder. We have to mobilize, not just, in Washington as Democrats, we have to mobilize in a bipartisan way. We have to mobilize workplaces. We have to keep thinking about innovative solutions. We have to engage entrepreneurs like you know what I mean, in this struggle, and make sure that you have the resources and the support that you need, whether that's in investment dollars or whether that's in companies that are signing up for your product, right? So like there's a lot of work we have to do on lots of different fronts, and it's happening.
I will just underscore just how massive it is of a win for all of us in this space. That 400% plus of ROI, those are numbers that you need, frankly, at BCG to underscore and go, this makes sense.
Yep, exactly. We didn't have that before. So I think it's a real game. It's a real game changer for our work.
Yeah. So To wrap up this interview, I've got some rapid fire questions for you
Great.
and
Great.
everything. Ready? Describe caregiving in 3 words.
Paid leave childcare.
Nice. What's your go-to fact or statistic about caregiving?
If you retain 1% of eligible employees, it pays for itself.
Beautiful. What is your favorite self-care activity?
Exercise. I try to work out every single morning, and it's my time, my space to kind of clear my head, to be away from my phone, to get my endorphins running. When I do it every morning, I've already had a win. Anything can screw up in my day, but like I've already won the day.
What is the proudest achievement you've had so far in your caregiving journey? This can be professional or personal.
Being a mother, having my children, I had both of my kids after 10 years of fertility challenges, and I never gave up. Through all of that pain and turmoil, I learned so much knowledge that I now share with other moms, whether it's about surrogacy, whether it's about fertility.
Final question. If caregiving had an official anthem, and you got to pick it, what song would you choose?
Dolly Parton, working 9 to 5.
Nice. Reshma, thank you so much for taking the time to share your story with us. It's always so inspiring to listen to you. Where can people find you?
You can find me at Reshma Saujani on Instagram and Moms First on IG and Instagram and on LinkedIn.
Awesome. Thanks again, Reshma.
Thank
And
you, Saran. So proud of you. You keep fighting, and we're so excited to support everything that you do.
thank you so much.